Looking for a portfolio of ideas like this one? Members of Biotech Analysis Central get exclusive access to our subscriber-only portfolios. Learn more. Day One Biopharmaceuticals, Inc. NASDAQ. Dawn is a biotech to keep an eye on in mid-November of 2023 because that is when an FDA filing decision of its lead drug tovorafenib for the treatment of patients with relapsed, refractory pediatric low-grade glioma, pLGG, will be decided upon. The company was able to submit a rolling Biologics Licensing Application, BLA, because of data from the pivotal Phase 2 FIREFLY-1 study. The biotech had also already submitted to the FDA an additional 6 months of safety efficacy data through June 5, 2023. Being that there are no approved therapies for these patients, this is going to be a huge inflection point for Day One. There is even potential for it to expand on the pLGG market, because it is already in the process of running a Phase 3 study known as FIREFLY, LOGGIC, which is evaluating the use of tovorafenib as a first-line treatment for patients aged 6 to 25 years of age with pLGG. Such a study, if successful, would allow the company to expand the usage of tovorafenib towards the first-line setting of pLGG. Lastly, it is taking tovorafenib alone and in combination with another drug in its pipeline known as pMERDib. These cohorts of drugs are being explored in the ongoing Phase 1b/2 FIRELIGHT-1 studies. The goal is to target relapsed, refractory, progressive solid tumors that harbor the MAPK pathway. As I noted above, Day One was able to complete the pivotal Phase 2 FIREFLY-1 trial for the treatment of relapsed, refractory, progressive pediatric low-grade glioma, pLGG, BRAF mutation trial successfully. Based on its advancement of this trial, it was able to submit a Biologics Licensing Application, BLA, of tovorafenib to the FDA. The whole reason it was able to file the BLA of this drug for the treatment of this pediatric patient population was because of successful results achieved in the FIREFLY-1 study. This was a trial that recruited a total of 137 patients. However, one particular arm of this study was looking at using tovorafenib as a once-weekly monotherapy option for these relapsed or progressive pLGG. The primary endpoint of this study was objective response rate, or by response assessment for neuro-oncology high-grade glioma, RANO-HGG. There was newly released data that further entrenched the positive outcome of this FIREFLY-1 study. The primary endpoint was met, in that the OR of the trial was 67%. Not only was there a sufficient response rate, but such response that had occurred was done so over a 16.6-month period, median duration of response. Tovorafenib has the ability to be a huge game-changer for the treatment of this patient population. Why is that? That's because at the moment there are no treatment options for this relapsed, refractory, progressive pLGG patient population. However, there is an ability for Day One to expand upon the pLGG patients that can be targeted. This will be done through the use of another ongoing late-stage study known as FIREFLY-2, LOGGIC. This trial, if successful, will help the company to target first-line patients aged 6 months to 25 years with pLGG. A second pipeline candidate that Day One has to continue its progress in treating patients with solid tumors would be a combination regimen. That is, exploring the use of tovorafenib alone as a monotherapy or in combination with its very own MEK inhibitor pMERDib. This combination is going to be explored in the Phase 1b/2 FIREFLY-1 study, to treat adolescents and adults with relapsed, progressive, refractory solid tumors with the MAPK pathway mutation. According to the 10Q SEC filing, Day One Biopharmaceuticals had cash equivalents and short-term investments of $442.9 million on June 30, 2023. The reason for the cash on hand was because it had completed an underwritten public offering on June 12, 2023. That is when it sold a total of 13.26 million shares of its common stock at a public offering price of $13 per share. In addition, the underwriters used the full exercise option to purchase up to an additional 1.73 million shares of common stock at the very same public offering price. Total gross proceeds achieved from this offering, before deducting expenses, were approximately $172.50 million. Based on the current cash on hand, it believes that it has enough to fund its operations into 2026. There are several risks that investors should be aware of before investing in Day One Biopharmaceuticals. The first risk to consider would be the upcoming FDA decision filing date of mid-November of 2023 for tovorafenib. That is when the FDA is set to decide upon the filing of the application of this drug for the treatment of patients with relapsed, refractory, progressive pLGG. The second risk to consider would be with respect to the ongoing Phase 3 FIREFLY-2, LOGGIC study. That's because the hope here for the company would be to see if it can also use tovorafenib in the frontline setting of pLGG. There is no assurance that it will achieve the primary endpoint of this study, nor that it will ultimately be able to expand into this first-line setting of pLGG. A third and final risk to consider would be with respect to the advancement of the combination regimen of tovorafenib and pMERDib for the treatment of patients with MAPK pathway mutation tumors. Tovorafenib has done well on its own, but there is no assurance that it will do even better when given to patients in combination with pMERDib, especially since this is targeting MAPK solid tumors. One Biopharmaceuticals has done well to advance tovorafenib for the treatment of patients with relapsed, refractory pediatric low-grade glioma, pLGG. There is an FDA filing decision date of mid-November of 2023 that investors should keep an eye on, which will be a huge inflection point for the biotech. Not only because it has the potential to cause the stock to trade higher, but also because there are no approved therapies for relapsed, refractory pLGG patients. As I noted above, there are two expansion opportunities. One will be to target first-line pLGG patients, and then the other will be to use tovorafenib in combination with MEK1/2 inhibitor pMERDib to target MAPK pathway mutated solid tumors. With a major catalyst approaching in a few months, plus additional pipeline advancements, I believe that investors might be able to capitalize on any gains made here.